Hello, everyone, and welcome to Computek College Learning Beyond Borders podcast with me, Aishwarya. I work as a marketing lead for Computek College, and today I'm a little bit scared because guess who is my podcast host? Sorry, who is my podcast guest? See, that's how scared I am. I'm blabbering. So let's welcome my boss, Muraly Srinarayanathas, the co-founder and executive chairman of 369 Global, a rapidly expanding conglomerate of companies. Welcome, Muraly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's very nice to be here.
I'm so excited. I'm super nervous as well.
Sure, I'm nervous too. You're the host interviewing me, so I don't know what kind of questions.
I couldn't see any sense of nervousness in your face.
I'm nervous inside. Yeah, I can hide it well.
Oh, wow. That's why you are a brilliant person. You are an excellent public speaker as well.
I try. It wasn't always that way. I think, I'm always still nervous every time I get on the stage, but nervousness and excitement are the same feelings. It's just a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
And I think as you do things more and more, you remember the times that you did it before. That brings you confidence. And also, I think, making mistakes help, right? Because then you're like, I did make a mistake. It was super embarrassing, but I'm okay. I'm still alive. And
yes.
So I think
let's not make it again. That's
let's
the
not
learning.
make it again. Yeah. But if it happens again, that's okay. But you're right. You have to learn from those mistakes and improve.
Have you ever went blank on stage?
Oh yeah, all the time.
All the time?
All the time.
You serious?
Yeah. I lots of times I've done that, and I think one of the worst things that happened to me is, obviously when I was younger I had hair. So if I'm like sweating or I make a mistake, then the hair would kind of absorb it. But because I'm bald now, if I'm nervous or something and it starts sweating, and then it just like drips. So I remember I was volunteering for a Tamil event, and we had some speakers. I was the host, and I wasn't prepared. That's I think one of the lessons learned for me. The more I'm prepared, the more confident I am, and I also prepare.
Right.
Okay, if I make a mistake, this is what I'm going to do. And this was really early on, so I totally blanked, didn't handle it well, and but again, it's okay. It was a lesson learned that I really need to prepare when I get on stage, especially introducing guests, etc. So yeah. So yes, I do blank, and sometimes that happens even now. But I think I'm better prepared because it's happened to me so many times.
Yes, and you have gained so much of experience in public speaking.
Yes,
right?
yeah. Do you blank?
I have blanked many times.
Yeah.
Many times.
What do you do when you
So here's the trick. I don't know and who taught me this trick. I never know who taught me this trick, but whenever I go blank, I say something to cover it up. So nobody knows that I went blank.
Yeah. Okay,
Nobody
smart.
knows. Yeah, and that's one of the trick that I learned. But then, after I go home and think back what exactly happened, maybe I wasn't prepared, as you said. Maybe I was nervous seeing the crowd. Maybe I was not fully prepared of what exactly is the expectation of the crowd, because sometimes we prepare something and then when we go there, the expectation is different.
Right. Yeah. I find, and it's very challenging sometimes to be the host because, you have a series of questions you have to go through. And so you have to be an active listener to the person speaking, because you want to get those nuggets to expand on.
Right.
But you also have this, agenda that you have to hit. So you kind of have to balance being present and listening to that person with also, hitting your targets.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I'm not good at that at all. So usually in podcasts, or if I was in your seat, I just wing it and see what happens. Yeah.
Well, usually you used to be in this seat, and I've watched many of your podcasts, and you make it so interesting and comfortable to the guest.
I try. Thank you.
I've learned so much from you and from your podcast.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's nice. But you do a lot. You're experienced on BBC. You're actually a professional journalist. I'm just on the podcast. But yeah, I think keeping people comfortable, we all get nervous as we get into these situations. So it's good to keep things loose.
Exactly. Yeah. So we covered a little bit about public speaking. Let's move on to your major part of who you are. You're an entrepreneur. We all know that. So you have experienced more than 2 decades, if I'm not wrong, as a business leader.
Yes. Yes.
So let's go back to 25 years back. What was going on in your mind? Were you always dreamed of being an entrepreneur someday?
You know, I think the earliest memory I have of this entrepreneurial bug is there. I was very young, and there were these like playing cards, and they're called not Cabbage Patch
Yes,
Kids.
yeah.
They had this thing called Garbage Pail Kids or something like that. You get these cards. There was a stick of gum in it. And I had older cousins that were allowed to leave the school and get, go for their lunch or something. And I grew up in the UK, so for 1 pence you could get these cards. And I asked the kids for 2 pence. I would get my cousins to get it. And I said, I'll give you the cards, but I want the gum.
Right.
So I'd get the gum and 1 pence, mainly because my mom wouldn't give me enough candy, I guess. And I didn't care about the money. I wanted the gum because I liked the candy, but I loved being the person that they would come to, and I could do something that was of value to them. And I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't even understand what Appa was doing in terms of business, but I loved being in that situation as a very young child. And I see that a lot with my daughter Sophia as well. Not that I don't know if she'll go into entrepreneurship, but some of these tendencies. But to come back to your question, I was extremely lucky that Appa was an entrepreneur. And so I got to see the types of things that he was doing. But I really only spent time with him when I was 20. He had his first of 3 heart attacks in 2000. I just finished my undergrad, and I went to go work with him and help him as he just had his heart attack, and learn the business and understand things. And I knew I was planning to go into law school at the time, was preparing for that, and his heart attack happened. But even as I was thinking about law school, I knew that I always wanted to go into business, mainly because he was and still is my hero, and to see the things that he did, I knew I wanted that. I knew that was where my talents also lied. I couldn't do it. I still don't think I can do it as great as he did, but I knew that's what I was aspiring to. But I was extremely lucky that he was in that mindset, and I think it comes down to mindset at the end of the day. 2 lessons I think that I've really taken from him. One, I learned very early on that he said, whatever you dream about, you can make a reality. And he said that, but also showed that to me practically. He would have an idea, we'll talk about an idea, a few months, couple years later, we were living that idea. So to have that, not to think about that or read that in a book, but to know that in your heart of hearts, as a young child is tremendous. Then what, anything I think of I can make happen, there's hard work in that, and etc. So that's the second point, is there are many entrepreneurs that have different motivations about why they're doing what they're doing. And again, I was very lucky because Appa has never cared about the money and never cared about the luxuries. Although he likes nice food, he likes to travel, but it has always been about the journey of dreaming about something and working towards that achievement.
Right.
And so he never paid me, which was infuriating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he never paid me.
You worked for him?
I worked for him. But, one is, I think, it's the family business. So it's not work in the family business. This is how you're
It's helping out your dad.
yes, and the entire family, right?
Right.
My brother, sister, and my mother. This is how we're surviving. So some people might look at it as work, but I think the point of him not paying me is to understand that this is how our family survives. One. The second thing is, I remember we owned a travel agency in Bangladesh, and I was always eager to come back home, but because he didn't pay me, the only way I could get a ticket to go back home is if the business did well.
Correct.
So it's not that he would say, you can't go at a ticket, but if the business does well, then you can do that, right? So you work the business, you work hard towards the business. That will provide the cash flows that are going to give you the life that you're looking for, the experiences that you want. So all of this to say, I think, entrepreneurship is very trendy right now. But I think the entrepreneurship that I love and that I practice, so to speak, is an entrepreneurship where you need to find someone where you can apprentice under, where you can learn from. Because when push comes to shove and your back is to the wall, some people might choose to address this through substance abuse, drinking, or treating others poorly, etc. Or even when they win, they might choose, let's go and party, etc. I'm not here to judge which way is right or wrong, but you should see all these things and choose which is the path for you. And for my father, again, I was very lucky because he showed me when his back is to the wall, well, I have to work harder, or I have to pivot my strategy and go towards this. And also helping others, right? He's a big fan of business, but business in the sense of helping everybody come up together, making money. He enjoys nice things, but we can all come up together. And, that's a blessing for me. I could have gone under any entrepreneur or had these, but I was lucky my father was in that, and blessed that I had the opportunity to grow and learn from him in that way.
Right. That's so interesting. And have you ever had this feeling that you mentioned a lot about your Appa being a successful entrepreneur and being your mentor as well? Have you ever had this feeling that even if we are struck, Appa is there to guide me or support me?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he still advises me to this day. I talk to my parents every day. Sometime annoyingly for me, 3 or 4 times a day, they're calling me. But I love to talk to them. They live 5 minutes away from me. I was raised by my grandparents as a young child. Both my children, Sophia and Leonardo, spend a lot of time at my parents' house as well. I think that's a great blessing, and I take advantage of that because I know the value parents, grandparents, and grandchildren can have. But yes, I very much cherish his advice, and as you said, it's not as much as it was before. When I was younger, I was a sponge, learning and absorbing, and he was the lead. And now, I'm managing the business, and again, still taking his advice. But I am the decision maker at the end of the day. I'm thankful he's honored me with that responsibility. But as you said, your father and your mother are always your father and mother, and you always, despite whether they're saying something or not, it's like a security blanket for you, right? That they're there.
Yeah, they're there.
And yes, it's annoying. My mom will call me 3 or 4 times sometimes, but it's nice, that she's there. One day, it's inevitable she's not going to be there, and I'm going to miss that. And I want to add, My mother was a great influence in who I am today, and especially on the speaking side, going on stage. She pushed me on stage to express myself, to communicate. Her creativity is amazing, and she encouraged that creativity within me. My grandma was also a great influence on me in terms of business. She was incredible. My grandfather was extremely disciplined. My brother is very much like my father, very intelligent, like very sharp, and can speak on any topic. My sister is very determined. My point is, yes, my father was a great inspiration to me in many ways, but it is the entire family, my cousins, aunts, that have been very supportive. And I don't, I'm very grateful. I won this, entrepreneurship award with Skills for Change, which is amazing.
Yes.
I'm not, again, as I shared, Appa always appreciated the journey. So when I win or when I lose, it doesn't affect me as much. I don't celebrate as much, but I don't get as down as much if I lose, because I like being on the journey. But getting these, awards is very nice. I'm very appreciative, but it doesn't really matter to me what other people think. But I do like to show off to my family and my cousins and stuff. Yeah.
Well, congratulations for the award. We were so happy to, hear that news, and
Thank you.
we shared that on social media too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And as I said we were chatting at lunch. I hope that people see that and they're inspired to be there. My hope is that you or other members of our team will one day be the one winning that award, or being recognized for their achievements, because it definitely is possible. I'm not anything special. It is just you have a focus and you're working towards that, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. So I've always had this question. I've met many entrepreneurs in my life. I always ask them this question: how does education? We all know that education plays an important role in shaping up children or an individual's personality or future or their thinking. So tell us about it. What is your take on it? Were you always a top student in school?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
I think some years. School was, I graduated very early. I graduated when I was 16 from high school, so I skipped. But I don't think it was anything that I was particularly intelligent or anything like that. I found school very easy, but I think because of that, I also didn't put the effort that I should have, so I didn't have spectacular marks or anything like that.
Because people always think that if a person is an entrepreneur someday, if we look back at their history, they are brainy, they excelled in academics. So is that how it should be?
No, definitely
Definitely not.
I think every person finds their path and their strengths, and I think the point is to explore that and to find your strength, and then leverage that towards whatever success means for you. Again, I was very lucky that Uppa was there and provided a path for me that I took full opportunity, and he let me fail. I made many terrible mistakes in business, but it's about finding that right guide for
Correct.
you. But I don't think our educational system, at least in the West, is very much structured for a certain type of person, and those people can be very successful entrepreneurs or career paths. I don't think it's a reflection of what your future success is going to be like. However, whatever your path is, it's important to always learn. People learn in different ways, but that's how we grow, and I am not a fan of stagnation. I don't like to be around people, at least my close circle, of people that are not looking to grow and expand. And for my wife Dasha, that is probably the most, like, the biggest thing I love about her is that she's always looking to learn and to grow. She reads a lot, she explores ideas. She has many talents. She's an amazing person, but the way that I connect with her is that we are both looking always to grow and learn more.
That's very well answered.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
You mentioned about UK and you mentioned about Bangladesh. So I could see you travel to many countries and were living in many countries. So how does this, experience of living and working in different countries help shape your thinking as a business leader?
Yeah, I think it's critical, and there's so many things I can say about this. In fact, I'm writing a book about this.
Oh, wow.
Because I think Canada is can play a critical role here. So yes, I was born in the UK, and Amma and Appa had me very early and were not prepared. Let me put it that way. So I was sent off to live with my grandparents in Jaffna in Sri Lanka, and I had my first birthday there. And I think I was there for about a year or year and a half or something. I came back to Canada, came back to the UK, went to Winnipeg, Manitoba when I was 6 by myself on the plane. And
At 6?
At 6 years old.
Do they even let
I think
kids
at that
of
time
6?
they allowed it. Yeah, this was the early 80s. I guess I was 85 or something like that,
Right.
1985. And met my aunt for the first time. I didn't know any relatives there, but my aunt was an amazing woman. She passed away a few years ago due to cancer, but amazing woman, and my uncles and my cousins and everything. And then I came back, and then Appa, my mom, my brother and sister went to India, and because Appa was producing movies at that time. And then I came back to Winnipeg, and my grandparents had moved to Winnipeg, and from 7 to 21 I lived in Winnipeg, and then from 21 to 33 I lived in Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia,
Oh my God,
France,
the list
and the
goes
UK.
on.
Yes, yeah. So absolutely incredible to talk about it now. But of course, as a young child, not being with your parents, being with, even though they're family, in some sense strangers to you, there was a lot of crying nights. There was a lot of angry nights. Even as a 21-year-old going to that part of the world, I was essentially a Western kid in now Asian countries. I didn't know the language, didn't understand the culture. And it was very hard. This is one of the things that I'm talking about as I go across country and speak at these Canadian immigrant events. Because I think, whether you're an immigrant coming to Canada or an immigrant going to another country, you are holding very tight to who you are. And at least in my experience, it was because I was scared to lose myself. I was a young guy growing up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, just finishing my university, going to Bangladesh, and I didn't want to lose that person. And I felt if I open myself up to the people around me I'm going to lose that person and become something that I didn't want to become.
Right.
And but it is inevitable that you're going to change. Change is inevitable. And it's not that you lose who you are there, you just build upon it, and it becomes a richer life. And so the moments that I started loosening up, and I didn't go from this to this and completely open up, but just loosen up a little bit, is when I opened myself up to relationships, to opportunities, and then I began to grow and learn. And again, it wasn't a smooth path. It was a slow, bumpy path. But that helped me become the man I am today and see the opportunities that were in front of me. As an example is Computek College. I bought it in 2014 when I came back. But to your point, in terms of opportunity and entrepreneurship, the world today, Aishwarya, and I'm sure you'll understand this, is it is not the West alone, right? It is not India alone.
Right.
It is not China alone. We're all together. I mean, if anything, the most recent example is COVID. But, you know, even with these climate changes, the warming of the planet, or, you know, pollution, et cetera, whatever, these global
It's everywhere.
challenges, is everywhere. And the actions that each of us take have an effect on all of us, right? And that is very challenging for somebody to understand if they're born and raised in China. It doesn't mean they don't understand it. They would understand it, but they might struggle to find the solutions because they were born and raised in an environment where it was all one culture and very, probably different, but very similar ways of thinking. But in Toronto, in Canada, but specifically in Toronto, and if you look at our company, 369 Global, there are many different perspectives, many different ethnic origins, many different ages that we have at 369 Global, many different work experiences in terms of their industries, but also in terms of were they, you know, entrepreneurs, were they in the corporate world, were they in small business, all of these different perspectives, and we need to come together in a boardroom so diverse, tackle these small challenges here in Toronto, here within our organization, in this diverse group of people. And that solution, or the way that we get to that solution, to me, is the micro example of the macro solutions that we can have for the world. And as a kid who traveled in so many different countries and lived and did business, you know, I had to make money in those places and survive. I very quickly understood how to connect with people that I didn't speak the same language with or didn't understand their culture. You had to open yourself up and connect in some way. And, you know, some people refer to this as a third culture kid. Have you heard this term?
Yes.
Yeah. And, you know, for those people who don't know about it, someone who's, you know, Tamil Canadian or Ukrainian Canadian or Italian Canadian, as a Tamil Canadian myself, I don't fully connect with the Tamil community. I connect with it, but I'm not a 100% person there. I don't also fully connect with the Canadian community. I'm this third culture, right? And as a result, I'm not fully there, but I can move in those different environments. But I was very lucky because I know how to move in a Bangladesh environment, in an Indian environment, in a Sri Lankan environment, in a Ukrainian environment, because I traveled in different parts of the world. And I don't have, you know, what's a place? I haven't been to Vietnam yet. I don't know what specifically the Vietnamese culture and et cetera is, but I know how to connect
with them.
And that's the benefit, I think, this is my long-winded answer to your question. That's the benefit I was able to gain traveling and how it's helped me in terms of entrepreneurship. And my first thought is, I need everyone's perspective. And I'm not afraid to say no to this person, yes to this person. But I hope people feel that I know how to hear all of them, feel that they contribute. We might not go with their thing, but they feel that they contributed, and together we've come out with that solution. And I think that's critical for any business environment. I also think it's critical for Canada, and I also think it's critical for the world. And that's what 369 Global is about.
100% agreed.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes. Being an entrepreneur comes with its own responsibilities, a lot of challenges, sleepless nights, sudden travels, things like that. And in our conversation so far, I've heard the mention multiple times about your family. So my question is, how important is family to you, and how do you balance work and life? Being a busy person,
Oh,
busy
man.
entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge, but it can be a challenge if you don't think about it and you don't prepare for it. And you have to have an understanding partner. I mean, hopefully you've chosen a partner where your values align from the start. But
Right.
but people also grow, so you also have to continuously have these conversations and grow together. But I don't know if there's any true answer to your question. I can just share with you that, I don't think my parents had that choice when I was growing up. They made a lot of sacrifices to come here. Um, my mom studied and worked as a nurse in the UK, and when she came here, she didn't have that opportunity. That was a sacrifice in many ways for her to spend the time to raise us, and then Appa went overseas. But I have that opportunity. So what do I do with that? And I have the opportunity of choice. Um, I also feel personally that I have a responsibility. I was surrounded by a lot of love and support, and there's a lot of people in this world that have not received that. What can I do? Again, just like my father, making money and enjoying the finer things in life, but also giving back. What can I do to do that? Sometimes I do that well, sometimes I make a mistake. But having family around me to balance those decisions, to check me, I think is important. And, tomorrow I'm off to Malaysia. And I was always upset when Appa left because he was mostly away when I was growing up. And just a couple days ago, I've been traveling a lot with Canadian Immigrant and different things. And Sophia said, Appa, you're always traveling now. Like, what's happening?
Give us some time.
Give us some time, yeah. And, and it made me think, it reminded me that parents are trying to do their best and make the best choices. This is how I was very angry at Appa early on. And this is the realization that I came to actually before I had kids, but I think, it's emphasized when you have kids, is that your parents are trying to make the best choices for you in whatever they see. You might agree with it, you might not agree with it, but one day you're going to be a parent or you're going to be in that position and someone is not going to agree with your choices, right? But you're going to try and do the best. But I hope that I inspire them to go for their dreams. And yeah.
So you
that's
make
it.
sure you spend quality time with them. You don't miss out.
Yeah,
Or you
I'm.
do.
Look. It's inevitable. I'm going to miss some things, but I try to spend as much time with them as I can. I pick them up and take them to school, pick them up, and being an entrepreneur, I have the time freedom, right? I think was it last week, Sophia had a dance week, so she spent time with me. You saw her when she came.
Yeah. I saw her in the costume.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship gives me the flexibility to do that, at least at this point, since the business has grown. But yeah, it was very hard, Aishwarya, when my wife and I first got married. We were really struggling in the business. I was working a lot. She was not happy in terms of how things were going. But you have to make the decision whether you're going to support each other or not. And if you can support each other, especially in those tough times, you're going to grow and you'll be stronger for it, right? I mean, you and your husband made a tough decision as you came here first, and then he came after, and I'm sure you guys are stronger for it.
Yes. We are in the same phase as you were once in the struggling period, Sometimes we do think like, why are we even here?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Because, people who come from Sri Lanka or Ukraine or other war-torn countries, the situation is different. They
Yes.
had to leave the country. They have nothing. The economy is bad. The politics is going crazy. But in our scenario, everything was good.
Yeah. You're booming in India.
We are
Yes.
booming.
Yes.
So some people were asking, why are you even leaving?
Yes.
India has
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But then we made that choice
Yes.
because we want to be here.
Yes. Yeah.
And we are learning each day, we are growing, and in Computech, it's a family-like environment. So everybody treat everyone with so much kindness and,
Yes.
friendliness, and then
Yeah.
it makes our lives easy.
Yeah, yeah, that's good to hear. I think that decision is never one time, right? There's always going to be things that come up, and you're going to have that thought
Right.
again. Why am I here?
Right.
And there's no right or wrong to
Right.
it, but I think you make the best of a situation. But I am very bullish on Canada in the long term, and India is dominating in so many ways. If you look at all the tech
Yes.
CEOs, they're
Yes.
Indian. The education system, the economy in India, demographically, the young people are there.
Right.
So I think, anyone who's there or doing business there or doing whatever there is going to do very well.
Right.
But I also think, there are certain limits to just being there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, going back to the example of Canada being very multicultural, as an Indian in Canada, you are connecting and learning how to work with many different cultures, which if you ever choose to go back to India is going to be a huge advantage, or whatever country whether it's Canada or, I don't know, Australia or wherever it is, you have the experience that you can work with anyone. And as India continues to boom and expand more and more globally in terms of its businesses or culture, etc., you are a key person to that expansion. And I think that you and your husband, I think that's a very, it's about strategic positioning at the end of the day. At least I think so. I think that's a very strategic place to be in.
Right, exactly. Me and my husband used to have this conversation as to what exactly you're talking about, and I'm so glad. And the thing that you told me is like making me so much confident that
Okay, great.
even if I choose to go back, or even if I want to go back to some other country or choose to stay in Canada,
Yeah.
I learned so much
Yes,
that I'm
yeah.
able to, apply wherever I go.
Yes, yes. And it's the confidence at the end of the day, it is absolutely incredible that you've both made this journey to come here and essentially start from scratch, right?
Right.
That means you can go anywhere and do that, right? And that confidence at the end of the day is, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I could do that, but you've done it, which is incredible.
One last question to you.
Sure.
Trust me, I honestly don't want to end this podcast, but
Sure,
considering the
sure.
time,
Sure.
I might have to. So, hard work, smart work. Which one do you choose? You just have to choose one. You cannot say both.
Smart work for sure. I'm a big believer in hard work, but smart work is critical because time at the end of the day is the most precious gift. So, if you can manage your time and work hard at specific time periods, so work smart, then you also have the opportunity to spend time with your family members. They say, not that I think you need to reference Harvard, but it's a Harvard study that says happiness is really about the relationships that you have at the end of the day. And I think, going back to my belief in terms of growth, relationships should be with people older than you and people younger than you. And, my grandma did this, I think, very well, where even at her age, in her 90s, she was calling and connecting with people at many different ages. And so that relationship, her mind was still working. She was active.
Active.
I think that's critical. So, yes, my answer to your question is work smart so that you can manage your time to really do as many things as you can in this amazing thing we call life.
Thank you so much, Muraly, for that
Thank you.
amazing answer. I think I really enjoyed, chatting with you. This never felt like a podcast for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Initially, I was a bit scared, but then you made this so comfortable, as you used to do with
Great.
your guests.
Great.
So I'm
Thank
super
you.
happy that I was able to have this time with you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure the listeners who are watching or the audience who are watching this video will have a lot to take from this video. So keep watching and share this video if you like and if you find this interesting. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe the video. Stay tuned for our next interesting episode of Learning Beyond Borders podcast. Until then, it's Aishwarya signing off with Muraly.